Hey, there you are again. Thank you for watching another tutorial. In this one, we will be creating a seamless floral pattern. It's really pretty easy and it's also a lot of fun. The possibilities are endless. You can use this to create your own wallpaper, for example, or use it for fabric. You can actually go to a website like Floral to upload your own seamless patterns. You do need to check the sizes they would need though, but websites like that really have like full instructions on what they need if you want to upload a design. But of course you don't need to do that. We can also just have fun creating this seamless pattern and just enjoy looking at it. To get started, make sure that you have a square canvas. I have a canvas that is 3500 pixels by 3500 pixels. I have also created a color palette for you in case you want to use the same colors as I will be using. And for this design, I will be using chalk brushes, but you could also go for a more painterly style, use painterly brushes, or if you want it to look more clean, then you can use crisp edged brushes. But after watching this tutorial, you will have an idea on how to create a half drop seamless pattern in Procreate. Now we'll get started with creating a few of the bigger elements in our pattern. Now for the brush, I am going to use the round chalk brush. And I'm going to start by creating a first flower. I'll start with this color, third color in the second row. And let's just make a rough shape. Just a rounded shape with like these petal shapes on the outside. So really a rough looking blob. Like with these little petals. It's like a peony flower I'm creating here. And I'm going to switch to the lighter pink, that second color in the second row. And I'll make some more petal shapes. By the way, the opacity of this brush is at 100% and the size is at 76%. And I'll just make these rounded shapes, a bit like a cloud almost. Rounded motions on the outside. Like this. And then I'll switch back to the previous color. You can actually also do that by just tapping and holding the color here. And then you'll switch to the previous color. And then I'll go over again, making these lines more thin. Then I'll switch back to the lighter pink again. Just a bit like this. Now we can go to the darker pink again by holding it over here, holding your pen. And then we get that core of our flower. Now let's add some dots to the center. Let's grab this third color in the third row. You know what? Let's zoom in a little bit. Now let's make the brush a little bit smaller, 40%. And we'll make some of these random dots in that center of the flower. Then we'll switch to the second color in the third row. And let's make the brush just a little bit smaller. Let's go for 20%. And we'll randomly add a few of these orange-like dots. And then we'll switch to the lighter color, the first color in the third row, for some lighter dots on top. So now we have a really basic peony flower. Now let's create another element. Let's turn this one off for now and tap the plus for a new layer. And I will go and grab this color over here, that lighter pink, second color in the second row, and we'll switch back to the round chalk. We were already using that. We're not switching. We're still using it, but we are going to make it bigger again. Let's go for, well, maybe 60%. And now let's make another basic flower shape. Let's make it more petally. Not sure if that's a word, but we'll give it more, a little bit more pronounced petals like this. And we'll just color in the center. But you can really let your imagination go wild and create whatever flower you like. It doesn't have to be something that's real. We're just creating something That is looking pleasing to the eye. Now on top of this, we'll use that lighter pink, that first color in the second row. And let's make the brush a little bit smaller. Let's go for 25%. And we'll just make these shapes going outward from the center. Just some of these lines. Look like a star shape. But a very rough star shape. Make some lines a bit longer, some smaller. Going from the inside to the outside. And now let's switch to the chalky liner brush, which is also part of my chalks brush pack. And of course, I'll add it to this tutorial. And for the color, let's grab this third color in the second row. And now let's make something like a star shape again. By the way, the opacity is at 100% and the size is at 58%. I'm just making a rough star-like shape. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's really a playful style. Just color it in. And now let's go and grab the round chalk brush again, and we are going to grab that second color in the third row, and we'll make a little circle here. Just like this. And then let's also grab that dark color, third color in the third row, and let's make the brush a little bit smaller, perhaps 10%, and we'll add a few of these dots. And let's also grab that light color, the first color in the third row, for a few of these light dots. So on to the next element. Let's turn this one off again and tap the plus for a new layer. This time we'll grab this orange color, the second color, third row. And for the brush, we'll stick with the round chalk. And now let's make a shape like this. So round it at the top. Let's make the brush a bit bigger. 35%. Color this in like this. And then let's switch to the first color in the third row and add this on top. Make more of these shapes. It's like a copy of the big shape right here. And then let's switch to this fourth color in the first row. And let's switch to the chalky liner brush again. Now we are going to make this underside right where the stem will be. Just a rounded shape underneath. And now let's duplicate this one. You can actually slide down with 3 fingers to make this little menu pop up, and then you can tap duplicate. And then let's move it and rotate it, and you can make it a little bit smaller. Do make sure that you have uniform turned on. And then we can duplicate it again. First tap the arrow, slide down with 3 fingers, tap duplicate. And let's place this one over here. And then let's duplicate it again. And you can also use flip horizontal, for example, to make it a little bit different. So something like this. Then let's merge these layers by pinching them together, just the layers with the orange flowers. And then let's use the chalky liner to make a stem. The size is still at 58%. Let's just make a line and then attach these flowers to that stem. Make sure that it's nice and opaque. You might need to go over a couple of times. Now let's arrange these 3 elements that we have just created and then start creating more elements around it. Of course, you could also continue creating different elements and then start arranging them. But I feel like I get more of a feeling for the pattern when I start arranging them early on and draw things as I go. So let's just do that. Let's turn these layers on and move them around. I want to start with this layer, that first flower that we have created. Let's actually first duplicate it by dragging to the left and tapping duplicate, and then turning that bottom one off, because then we can always use that first flower that we have created if we need more flowers later on. Now let's use the move tool and let's zoom out a little bit so we can see our entire canvas. We can rotate it a bit. Let's place it over here. Then let's go for the other flower. Let's first duplicate it again, turn the bottom one off, and then move this one around. You can place it over here, for example, and then let's go for this flower, duplicate it first, turn that one off, and let's place it underneath the pink flower over here. We'll move it. Perhaps we need to make it a little bit smaller. I want it to pop up from behind that pink flower, something like this. So now we have a bit of a base, like triangular shape going on here, and we can use some fillers to make this, well, more filled. It's a bit boring right now. Let's create some leaves, some extras. Let's also give a little color to our background. Let's go to the layer menu, tap background color, and use this first color in the first row. Now let's place these layers that are turned off. Let's place them at the top, so we can always grab them if we need them later. And now let's make a new layer by tapping the plus and place it underneath the other layers. And now let's start creating some leaves. Let's use the chalky liner brush and that blue color that we still have selected, that fourth color in the first row. And for example, let's create a leaf over here. And we can just color it in by hand, like this, and let's make one over here. Try to make it look a bit balanced. We're just going to create some leaves here and there. Let's also add one here. And I'm just coloring it in by hand because it gives that nice textured look. Smaller leaf over here. So it's a bit as if we're just coloring a coloring page. Let's also make like a little branch that has leaves on it attached to it. Just these smaller leaves for some variation. Just make sure as you create this pattern, this base for our pattern, that you don't touch the edges of your canvas. Stay clear from those. And one over here. All right, now let's grab a lighter color. Let's grab that first color in the third row. And we're going to add some details to these leaves. Let's first make the brush a little bit smaller. Let's go for 25%. Now let's make these veins for our leaves. And this is a nice contrasting color, that light on that dark blue. I like the look of that. And over here. Now let's make it a little bit thicker. The brush, 45%. Let's go over here. And here let's make some random dabs for a little bit of a different pattern for this leaf. I want this to look a little bit thicker as well. Then this one, a line like this, and then just a little dotted pattern. And then for these leaves, I want to use the other orange color, the second color in the third row. And let's just make these lines on them for a little bit of contrast. Now let's go and create a layer on top of this by tapping the plus. And for the color, let's grab this fourth color in the second row. And for the brush, we are going to use the round chalk brush again. We're actually just using two brushes here, the round chalk and the chalky liner. And now let's make some like berry shapes or little round flowers. You can cover some parts just like this. And let's do the same over here. And you can make some a little bit bigger and some a little bit smaller, vary it a little bit. And now let's go back to that layer underneath. This one, layer 7, we'll go back to that dark blue color, fourth color in the first row, and we'll also go back to the chalky liner. And I will create a little stem like this, and we'll attach these little balls to that stem. We'll do the same over here. We'll go to this one, and then we'll attach the others just like this. Next, I want to create some fern leaves, and I want to use this color for that third color in the first row. And let's go to our layers. Let's do it on a layer underneath these. So first tap the plus and then drag it underneath. And then let's go from here and make a line like this. And then at the end, we'll make a little leaf. And then we'll make the other leaves popping out like this. And they are right next to each other, coming out at the same point. And they are a little bit thicker in the center, thinner at the end. Or at least I'm trying to make them like that. Over here. Let's turn those flowers off so we can see this little element here. Let's turn those off as well, because I like this element. I like this little fern leaf, and we could use it later on. So let's just duplicate this layer to be sure. Duplicate it, turn it off, and place it with the other elements that we might use later. Let's turn this back on and go back to the bottom. And then let's tap the plus for another layer and another fern. Let's do that over here. We'll make a curved line first, and then let's make a different type of fern. A little bit different type of leaves. They are shaped a little bit differently. But it adds a little bit of variety. So right now we're just filling the center of our page, the center of our canvas, without touching the edges. You really need to make sure that you don't touch the edges. Almost there. Very basic looking fern shape. Just a little bit over here. And again for this one as well, we can duplicate it and save it at the top of the other layers. So here we have like 5 elements which we can use later on. Now let's merge these layers that we have just created, and let's just make one more. Let's tap the plus, drag it underneath, and now I want to use that other color, that second color in the first row, and let's go and grab the round chalk brush again. I feel like we could use a little rounded leaf over here, and perhaps we can make some and add some of this blue right here behind these orange flowers. It gives a nice contrast in color. I like the way these colors work together. So just a very basic shape. And let's also make a little one over here and a leaf over here. Now let's just add a few lines on top of them by using the chalky liner and that orange color, second color in the third row. And over here, let's add these veins on the leaf. And over here as well for these leaves. All right, now we have the start of our pattern. This is the base of our pattern. What we need to do now is merge these layers that are turned on. So please leave those other layers alone because we can use them later on. It'll save us some work and time. First, we need to duplicate these layers 2 times. And then let's tap the plus for a new layer, and we will need to fill this with a color. We can just use that background color, that first color in the first row. And we need it to be underneath the design, under each of them actually. So let's duplicate it, drag it underneath this one, and duplicate it again, and drag it underneath. Now let's start with these two. We'll need to drag to the right to select them both, and go to the move tool. Make sure to go to snapping and have snapping turned on and distance and velocity turned up to max. That will make your life easier and make your image snap more easily. Then go to flip horizontal, flip your design and move it to the left until it's nicely centered. You can see that orange line, vertical line, and you can see the line over here. Then you know that it's placed correctly. Then we'll move on to these 2 layers, select them both. Go to the move tool, again use flip horizontal, and this time we'll move it to this corner. Then we'll go to the next one, select both of these layers, go to the move tool, first go for flip horizontal and move it down here. Then we'll go back to the layer menu. We can actually delete these blue layers, select all 3 of them, then tap delete, and then merge the design again. Now we have a gap here in the center, and we can start filling it with extra elements. We actually have a bunch of them. Let's turn this one on, for example, and let's move it around with the move tool. Let's first turn down the distance and velocity here so that it doesn't snap all the time. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Place it about here. We can actually move it underneath the design. I like that a bit better. I can also see we have a little gap over here. So let's go to this layer, then grab the round chalk and the second color in the first row to fix this. Then let's go and grab this design. Let's turn it on and drag it underneath the others. Then go to the move tool. Let's make it a bit smaller. And let's find a nice placement for it. Perhaps over here. I feel like this looks a little bit weird. Let's just grab the eraser and erase that part. And actually this one looks a bit weird as well. Let's use the move tool. move it just a little bit more. Maybe we can make it a bit smaller. We don't want it to touch the other, well, like this little berry over here. Let's tap the arrow. I feel like it has some nice space right now. Now let's grab the other elements. Let's grab this flower. Let's place it underneath the rest as well. Place it over here. Let's use the move and transform tool. Make this flower a bit smaller as well. Where shall we place it? What about here? Then let's go and grab a fern. Drag that underneath as well. Use the move and transform tool. And where shall we place this one? Maybe over here. Then for the other fern, final fern, let's turn it on. Drag it underneath and use the move and transform. Make it a bit smaller. I think this is looking nice. I do see some gaps, so let's grab the chalky liner brush and the correct color, the third color in the first row. And let's fix that. And let's also add some of those darker leaves here to fill those gaps. Let's make a new layer by tapping the plus, and then let's grab that fourth color in the first row. And let's make a leaf over here. Color it in by hand. Yeah, let's place one over here too. We're nicely filling in the gaps. And we can actually also create a, like that aqua colored leaf, that second color in the first row. Let's grab the round chalk brush again and make one over here. And perhaps an extra one over here. We have a little gap here too. Then let's go for the chalky liner and that orange color, second color in the third row. We'll add some lines on these leaves. I will grab the lighter color, first color in the third row for these leaves. And you can decide what pattern you want on there. You can vary it a bit. Now let's merge these layers, merge our pattern. Now that we have filled our design, let's go check out our seamless pattern. We can check if this was a success by first giving our pattern a background color, like on the layer itself. So tap the plus for a new layer, drag it underneath, and let's grab that first color in the first row and drag it onto the screen, and then merge these two layers. Now we are going to make duplicates of this one, 5 to be exact. So you need 5 layers. We'll start with the top one, go to the move tool, make sure that you have snapping turned on and that distance and velocity is turned to max and that uniform is turned on. And now make this one smaller like this and then move it upward to here. It'll snap in this area. We'll go to the next layer, make that one smaller as well. Again, 1/4 of the size, and move this downward to this center area. Then we'll go to the next layer, make that one smaller, and move this one downward like this. Then we'll go to the next layer, go to the move tool, make this smaller like that. And then finally this layer, go to the move tool, make it smaller. Then tap the arrow, and here you have your seamless pattern. And to see if it's seamless, let's merge these layers and then let's duplicate them 3 times. So we have 4 of these layers. Then go to the move tool and make this one smaller. Go to that one, make that smaller as well. this one. And that one. There. Now once you have your seamless pattern, you can export it as a JPEG or a PNG, and you can check out what it looks like as a wallpaper. Now I will be sure to share a link with you to get this mockup file as well. Now I would suggest to go to the layer with your inserted image with your pattern and to tone it down a little bit. You can go to the magic wand, then go to curves, make sure it's set to gamma, and pull it down just a little bit, especially here at the top. Make it a bit more muted to make it merge with the surrounding a bit more. And then just tap the magic wand again. And there you have your seamless pattern, your wallpaper. And looking at your pattern like this just makes it a lot more fun in my opinion. I hope you have enjoyed following this seamless pattern creating tutorial. I'm looking forward to seeing your results. Perhaps you'll find some other mock-up files, some other ways to show your seamless pattern. I would like to thank you for watching. Thank you for your support, and I will see you next time for the next tutorial.